Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hello and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I'm your host, Alan Moore, and today I'm excited to bring you an interview with Inga, the founder of Attainable Wealth, a fee-only RIA in Los Angeles, focused on college professors and teachers. She also has her PhD in finance and is an assistant professor of finance and financial planning at her local university. Inga is a rock star. She must have more time in the day than the rest of us, other than Kitsis, of course, because most of her career has been spent working multiple full-time jobs and building her resume and skill set, which has ultimately led her to opening her own financial planning firm while also teaching, which is really one of her major passions. She opened up her books for us and shared how much she spent her first year of business, how many clients she's worked with, and how her service model is evolving to better serve her ideal clients. She also talked about various ways clients are finding her, which reinforces our push towards having a niche market, since that's been really effective for her. To top it all off, she has a 7-week-old son, so we were really fortunate to be able to squeeze in an interview during nap time. Admittedly, I was a little disappointed he didn't wake up because it would have been nice to have him on the show, but she was thankful to get a little bit of a break. You can find any of the additional resources that we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/80. In addition to the typical resources, you'll find a link to our recently launched book, co-authored by Kitsis and myself, titled The Monthly Retainer Model: What It Is, Why It Works, and How to Implement It in Your Firm. This month's episodes are brought to you by Financial Planners Assistance, providing compliance services to financial planners and other investment advisors since 1982. Financial Planners Assistance is a boutique consulting firm that provides the personalized compliance services firms are looking for. I actually personally worked with Financial Planners Assistance when launching my firm back in 2012, and I cannot say enough great things about their team and Jim Cullen, the owner. The awesome service and support I received was unparalleled, including going through an audit by the state of Wisconsin. Check them out at financialplannersassistance.com. Also be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN Radio listeners. You can interact with other listeners, ask us questions, and more. Without further ado, here's my interview with Inga. Hey, Inga, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being on.
Hi, Alan. I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah, I'm excited. From our conversations in the past, you have an awesome story and just a really cool career path. So I'm excited to explore some of that with you. And for our guests, which we'll talk about this a little bit, but I'm especially thankful because you're taking time out of your day, considering you have a 7-week-old at home. So thank you for being willing to be on the show with a little one. If he wakes up, no big deal. We'll have him on the show as well.
Hopefully it doesn't happen. We'll see.
I need to have my little man on the show. He's talking now, so he should be able to make it.
He has enough knowledge by now probably about financial planning to bring something to the show.
The poor kid has to listen to calls between me and Kitsis, when I'm driving, and he'll tell people like, "Daddy's on the phone." I'm like, all right. Try not to work too much in front of him, but anyway. So, as usual, kind of take a step back. I guess kind of what has been your career path? What did you, I guess, aspire to be whenever you were in college and kind of looking at various career paths out there?
Let's see. So I decided I was going to study business when I was in 8th grade. And
early on.
Yeah, early on, like I was still in middle school. And my idea of a perfect job was to be an HR manager. That was my career path at the time. And when I was a senior in high school, I was an exchange student in the U.S. I'm from Eastern Europe, by the way. I'm from Moldova. So I came to the U.S. I came to Sacramento back in 99 as an exchange student. And I really liked studying here because I thought it was pretty easy to study in the U.S. compared to where I'm from. You just come to school, you show up, you get A's, and you go home. I was like, why would everybody want to do this?
Our education system.
Yeah. You can go for a few hours and go home. And I decided to stay for college in the U.S. And by the time I'd made the decision, it was so late. I only applied to 2 colleges and got the same scholarship in both. And it was a choice between Connecticut and Florida. And the brochure in Florida looked so much nice, I decided to go there. So that was how I ended up in a random school in Florida for my undergrad. And the major they had there was small liberal arts college, so there wasn't a lot of choices. So I decided to go with international business because it sounded exciting. I speak 5 languages. But very fast I realized international business doesn't really give you a skill. It's more of a general major. So I said, well, let's do something more numbers oriented. And I signed up for finance because accounting would have taken me an extra year. And I did finance. And that was my beginning.
Now, I want to note that you just sort of glossed over the fact that you speak 5 languages. So what 5 languages do you speak?
My native language is Romanian, which is very much like Italian and French. And people don't really know that because when I speak, I have a very Russian accent. Mm-hmm. I do speak Russian, and I also speak French and Spanish.
So French, Spanish, Romanian, Russian, and English.
Yep. And by now,
big deal.
I speak English way better than I speak everything else because that's what I do every day.
No big deal. So I'm just curious, are you going to kind of teach your little one? Is he going to be bilingual, or do you speak to him in English?
No, he will be speaking Russian because we decided that Romanian is not a very useful language. So I'm going to speak Russian, and my nanny is going to be Russian, and my husband is going to be speaking English.
Fantastic. All right. Well, and everything says that, being able to speak 2 languages is a huge boost in terms of IQ and just sort of overall outlooks on life. So that's awesome that, be able to have that opportunity. So sorry, that was a distraction, but 5 languages is crazy.
All right.
That's fantastic. You know what? Let's just ask, how does one come to learn 5 languages? Was this something just because of the area you grew up in where a lot of different languages were spoken, or was this intentional?
A little bit of both. So everybody speaks Russian in Eastern Europe, no matter where you're from. So you grow up bilingual, and then you learn one more language in school, which for me was French. And then I learned English because my parents are both English teachers. So I was used to hang out with them when they were teaching other people. And then I came to the US and I kind of fell into a group of Spanish speaking in college, and I fell in love with Spanish and I learned Spanish.
All right. I think that this is going to be extremely indicative of the rest of this interview. Okay, so you got your degree, accounting, obviously, you take an extra year.
Actually, I got my degree I triple majored in college. So I did international business finance, and then I still need to graduate with a few extra credits. I need like 10 more credits. And my roommate at the time was a marketing major. I'm like, why not? Let's do it. It sounds pretty exciting. So I also tagged marketing on top of that.
Okay, so triple major in college. So you are an overachiever, which is fantastic.
Yeah, well, at the time it was fantastic, but it was great when I got my first B in my MBA.
All right. Well, did you go straight into grad school, or did you take a job out of undergrad?
I really needed to work at the time, and I was an exchange student or an international student, so getting the work visa is pretty complicated. So I don't want to say trick, but I kind of convinced Citigroup at the time to hire me and offer me the H-1B visa, and they signed up to do that because my boss wanted me to work for her without really realizing what she's signing up to do. So it wasn't my contract, and HR was like, well, you promised, let's give her a work visa now. So I went to City Street, which was a Citigroup and State Street division for a few years, and it was finance, and I ended up working a lot of projects in implementation of benefits. Health and welfare, DC, DB benefits. So I got exposure to all these topics that have nothing to do with finance, but I was on the technical side of it.
Okay, that makes sense.
For a few years.
Okay. So, just out of curiosity, what is did you say HB1 visa? Is that a work visa?
Yeah, it's a work visa. It's a work visa you get after you graduate if you want to stay in the U.S. and work. And you get it for 3 years twice. So you have 6 years.
Okay, and so within those 6 years, do you have to then establish to get full citizenship? Or?
Yeah, you have to somehow apply for a green card, which is not very easy. And they were doing my green card, and the process was so long and complicated. At one point, at the time I was dating my now husband, and we were living together, buying a house, and he's like, okay, this is ridiculous. So let's just go to the courthouse and solve the problem in 5 minutes. So that's what we did.
A very romantic proposal. No, it's a shame that it is that complicated, which we could probably talk quite a bit on and offend a lot of people. But so we'll avoid that topic.
Yeah, I got my green card, I got my U.S. citizenship, and I did not do it through work. But you can do it through work if you have 10 years. Okay,
so you have 10 years to do it through work.
Yeah, so I worked with them for a few years, and while I was working there, out of the blue, the school I did my undergrad called me and asked me if I want to teach for them. And I was thinking, like, eventually I will get a PhD. By this time, I already finished my MBA. I was doing my MBA at night while I was working, and Citigroup was paying for it. So I finished my MBA, and I said, why not? Let me go and try teaching. And they convinced me to teach full-time, which as a professor means 2-3 days a week. And I did that for 2 years, along with working for Citigroup. By this time, my boss at Citigroup had a really good relationship, and he let me work full time, but in the office 2 days and at home, and pretty much told me, as long as the work is done, I don't care what you do.
So basically, you have 2 full-time jobs at this point. You're going into Citigroup 2 days a week full time, and you've got the teaching job full time. So I'm assuming a lot of hours. And you said you have not. So you've got your MBA at this point, but not yet gotten your PhD.
No. I was working as a full-time instructor with my MBA, or teaching that way.
Right. Okay.
So, I mean, I was working a lot of hours. I was working probably 80, 90 hours a week for those 2 years.
Wow. So what courses were you teaching at the university?
It was all finance. It was corporate finance, investments. It's a small private college. So we're talking about 2 people. That's the whole finance department. So in 2 years, I taught 8 different courses.
Wow. Goodness. I have taught undergraduate courses before. They are a lot. The first time you teach a class, it takes 10 times longer than the next time you teach it because there's so much prep work and all that. So to teach 8 classes in 2 years is a lot. What motivated you to do? I mean, why work? Citigroup probably pays well. So is it the money that motivated you to have the teaching job and the job at Citigroup, or just?
It was a long-term plan. After 5 years at Citigroup, I realized, well, actually at the time it was 3 or 4, I realized that I do not want to work 100 hours a week for the rest of my life and be stuck in an 8 to 5 or 8 to 8 job. So I was looking for that perfect combination of lots of pay and little time spent at your job. And college professor came on the top of the list. Right. I just wanted the flexibility. I realized, okay, if you really want to do this well, you have to have a PhD. So I'll have to sacrifice 4 or 5 years of my life and go and get a PhD. But afterwards, I'll have to teach 2, 3 courses in a semester and have 5 months off, and I can do whatever I want in my life in between.
The beauty of the PhD's hours. So, okay, so you have these 2 jobs. So that's when you started the PhD program? Or?
No, you gotta quit. If you're going to go full time, legitimately for PhD, you should quit your job. So I quit my job in 2009. I applied to many schools, and I decided to go to the school that was going to the most legitimate, best school I could find that's going to get me out in 4 years.
So where did you end up going?
I went to Florida Atlantic University, which is in South Florida, by West Palm Beach, Boca Raton area. And I spent 4 years there.
Okay. So what did you get your PhD in?
In finance. It was full, clean finance. At the time, I didn't even know financial planning existed.
So this is business, kind of corporate finance, again, with the intention that you become a professor.
Tenure track professor, do research, the whole thing.
Now, based on your history up until this point, there's no way that you were going to just work 2 days a week and, go and just hang out the other 5 days a week, right? You obviously fill your time. So did you have a plan for, if you're working 2 to 3 days a week as a professor, what you were going to do in the other days of the week in the 5 months of downtime in the summer?
No, at the time, during the PhD, the brain works pretty well, and you realize that tenure track professor job is not really a 2-day-per-week job. If you want to make it, you can be 100 hours a week because you can write research and you can write papers, and it's always about getting the tenure. So it becomes an obsession. So at the time, I thought I'm going to focus on that for a few years, and then I'll figure out something else afterwards. And I was thinking consulting probably, or corporate finance. My research is in mergers and acquisitions, something along that way.
Yeah, it's a good point for anybody out there interested in the PhD program, which I obviously do not have my PhD, but I did some research on it just because I was looking at a PhD in financial planning. If you go to what we call an R1 university, or a research, land grant university that has a research focus, you basically have 4 to 5 years to get tenure. And it's basically after 5 years, you put everything you've ever done in those first 5 years and you put it in a book and you give it to a tenure research committee of a bunch of people that have worked at the university for 80 years, and they decide if you get tenure or not. And if you get it, great. If you don't, your career's kind of shot. So I'm assuming kind of why you're saying that, ultimately it becomes your obsession, because it takes a lot of work to build the dossier in order to make tenure. So it's not to discount it. It's for the folks that are passionate about research, it's a wonderful process, and you get to do a lot of cool stuff and learn a lot of cool stuff, but it is possibly frustrating for folks who are more teaching oriented than research oriented.
And that's a great point, Ellen, because we all go into the PhD thinking we want to be college professors to teach. Almost every single student who comes in thinks they're coming to teach. And within 6 months, they realize that the teaching is almost irrelevant to your tenure. It doesn't matter. And it's so sad for all the students.
Yeah, it's an interesting piece. It's just the way our college system has developed. And again, a debate for another day. But it is a reality for folks getting their PhD that you need your PhD to do research. So we get this question a lot, should I get my PhD in financial planning? The PhD is to do research. It is an unfortunate reality that a lot of universities, especially the big universities, if you know the names of them, require the PhD to teach. Even though getting your PhD doesn't really teach you how to teach, it teaches you how to do research. So it's a little bit strange, but the smaller universities that are not your flagship schools will allow you to teach typically with a master's degree.
Yes.
I don't know a lot that lets you teach with an undergrad.
You can definitely teach with a master's degree as long as you have in the College of Business, you have to have the 18 hours in whatever you teach. But if you really want the payoff money-wise, the PhD will pay you twice as much as the master's. So it's really worth to get a PhD if you're going to do this as a career.
It's a tough balancing act. For anybody that's out there that's interested in getting a PhD, I think it's certainly a very worthy and noble career for someone that is interested in it. I wouldn't recommend getting your PhD if all you want to do is financial planning, right? You're not going to learn how to be a great planner.
No. You already, by the time you're there, you already have your CFP, you have enough knowledge in a master's degree. Should probably be okay without it.
Probably be fine. So I guess at what point did you learn financial planning was a career since your focus was in finance?
Well, while I was working at Citi, I did a lot of DB and DC implementation projects. I was exposed to a lot of retirement planning, but it was from the side of let's set up this plan for the company, not from the participant perspective. And while I was in my PhD, my major professor, my dissertation chair, actually wrote a personal finance book. So we had a lot of conversations with him. Okay, this is so much more exciting and so much more interesting than whatever else I'm doing. How can I add this to my resume and actually go into this? So when I went to the job market, I really wanted to target schools that wanted somebody who's interested in financial planning and who want to get their CFP, but was still in the College of Business with a finance degree. So I was one of those few people who has a finance PhD, but is looking for a job to teach both finance and financial planning.
Mm-hmm. So, and you were able to find a university like that?
There were very few schools at the time. Now it's getting more popular. But at the time, I went to the finance job market only for the simple reason because you get paid more there than if you go for financial planning, just financial planning. And I went to Oregon State, which was opening a CFP board approved the master's degree. And I was pretty much a really good match for that, because it was more of a research school, but they still wanted somebody who either knows something about financial planning or at least is interested in learning something about it. So I went to Oregon State.
Yeah, this is the politics of financial planning. So for folks that are interested in grad school, one of the things you quickly learn is that academia is very politics ridden. It's why I actually got out of the academia world, just because I'm not the best personality fit for it. But you kind of have these, a couple different paths that you're talking about. Just to clarify, a lot of the financial planning programs, well, pretty much all planning programs are split between either a business school or family and consumer sciences. Family and consumer sciences comes in a lot of different forms. It could be ag econ, it could be some just with home consumer sciences and that sort of thing, but kind of two different routes. And then you also have this thing with the business school, like you're talking about, where business schools tend to be pretty much at every university, the highest paid professors are in business schools as opposed to any other college. Now, I think financial planning professors are getting paid more than they used to, but they're still being compared to consumer economics professors, which get paid like $50,000 a year, just because they tend to be a little bit lower demand. So as you get into this world, it's a good thing, if you're interested in getting a PhD, talk to as many people that are in PhD programs or have graduated PhD programs as you can, because you will learn a lot of these things and maybe some things you wish you had known before you got in and before you picked a university.
Yeah,
and that
if
sort
you're
of thing.
going to do a PhD in finance, financial planning, and you're thinking about this, please give me a call, because you can do it really, really well, and you can maximize your output if you really plan for it. Yeah, it surprises me when somebody comes to me and tells me, I didn't realize when I graduate I'm going to make $70,000 after 6 years of a PhD. I'm like, well, there's a way to realize it if you look into it before you start.
Look online. Yeah, it's a fair point. Every single professor, public university professor's salary is online. I mean, if people want to know how much money you make, they can just go online. It's very easy to find. So pretty easy to figure out what folks are making. So anyway, okay, so you go to Oregon State and...
Yes, I go to Oregon State and I start my research-oriented, obsessive career there. But at the time, my husband, he would have never found a job anywhere close to Corvallis, Oregon, in what he does. So he found a job in Los Angeles, and we bought a house in Corvallis, and he commuted. I mean, he's used to commuting because we've been doing this before. So he commuted to Oregon from Los Angeles for 2 years. Well, actually for a year before a job opened up in Los Angeles, right next to where we live, which was pretty much a dream job for me. And that was at Cal State Northridge. It was a job in teaching financial planning in the finance department in the business school.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, well, they are looking for somebody just like me. There's only one perfect job for me. So it was like a match made in heaven. So 2 years ago, I applied for the job and I moved here in fall 2015.
So your current role is still as a professor of financial planning in the finance department?
I am an assistant professor of finance, but our department is finance, financial planning, and insurance. And I was hired to teach both finance and the financial planning courses. They pretty much hired me to teach the capstone, the cases course for financial planning, and also whatever else is necessary. And for the last year, I taught the corporate finance MBA. And in the spring semester, I'm moving to personal finance.
Okay. So at what point in this process did you get your CFP?
I got my CFP when I was at Oregon State. So when I started teaching there, I was teaching the insurance, the tax planning, and there's something else. I don't even remember what module. And I realized that, I mean, I read all the books and like, well, I have this. I can challenge the exam. I only have to take one course. And I took it at FSU Online, the capstone course. So in November 2013, I signed up and took the CFP exam.
So what you're referring to is if you have the CFA, a PhD, and maybe one other, maybe the CPA.
CPA, I think,
you can challenge the educational requirement now, which is a fairly new requirement that you have to take a case study capstone class. So you still have to go take that course somewhere. So you did it online, which is good to know that you can just go take that one class and do it online.
Yeah, it took me like 3 months to do it. And I decided to get my CFP in March and I studied for the summer and I took it in November.
How many hours? Because your PhD in finance in no way prepared you to sit for the CFP exam. I mean, it's just such different content. How many hours did you put in studying for the exam to pass the exam? Because it just feels like that's a tough road without having taken all the personal financial classes, or maybe the PhD prepared you better than I'm thinking.
No, the PhD didn't prepare me very well. I mean, I was really good at investments and I was going to just spend time on investments or like time value of money, but I didn't. And by this time I taught the insurance module and I'm personally fascinated by tax. So I kind of read tax textbooks for fun. So I have a background in that, but I didn't know anything about estate planning. I guess retirement was also okay because I used to work in retirement benefits. So I knew enough about that, but estate planning was like, I have no idea what this is. So I had to study for the estate planning, but I don't think my case is representative because I had some background in some of them. So like I flew through the retirement book, for example. I read the books once through the summer and then I took the Kanzen prep course, which was the best $1,000 I ever spent.
Which prep course did you do?
The Kanzen.
Okay.
Kanzen,
yeah. That's a very common question as well, is which, and most of us have only taken one review course. Like you did Zahn, I did Dalton, so I can't speak about the other. Not very many of us have ever done two courses, but I hear great things about Ken Zahn. He tends to be a more succinct, to the point professor, in teaching you what you need to know instead of trying to teach you everything like some of the programs do. So.
Yeah, I mean, I look at all of them right now because I teach the capstone and all the students ask me. So we're trying to prepare them. So I look at a lot of these prep courses. If it's there, I looked at it. So I do have opinions about them. I don't know if I want to disclose them publicly right now, but if somebody really wants to know, I could tell you which ones I think are better and which ones are not.
So if you're sending folks, are you generally sending them to Zahn or do you send them to 2 or 3 that you like?
Zahn and Dalton. Both to Zahn and Dalton right now, depending on what they need and where they are.
Okay. So Zahn and Dalton, there you go. And those are generally the 2 I recommend as well. So, okay. So you got this job, and I'm assuming with your skill set and the letters after your name and your personality, you have to get a lot of job offers from corporate and consulting and that sort of thing. I mean, is there a world out there that is, I guess, vying for your attention, or are you really enjoying the teaching side and not really interested in the corporate jobs?
No, I consistently think about the corporate jobs every 6 months. When I finished my PhD, I got offered a job at a hedge fund, and it was in West Palm Beach where I was already living. Like, why move? So I really considered that because
no kidding.
Hedge fund jobs come with a lot of money. And every time I would say, no, I don't think so, because they also come with responsibility. and a lot of headache. I would say, no, I don't think it's too much for me. I want you to do my PhD because I wanted to have more time. And now you're going to make me work 100 hours a week. And they would come back and offer you $50,000 more.
Just keep raising it.
So it's like, and they're like, you just have to do it for 3 to 5 years, burn out, and then you can go. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. But while I was transitioning from Oregon State to Cal State Northridge 2 years ago, I realized it's a very different school. Cal State Northridge is a more teaching-oriented school, and teaching really is valued here. And the research requirements lower than what I was used from Oregon State. So I knew that I could get tenure relatively easily, at least research-wise. So I didn't have to spend that much time. And I really wanted to start working in financial planning. So I considered joining a few different groups. I interviewed with people. I got a few job offers. And then I decided I really don't want 2 full-time jobs again. I want to do something different. And 2 of the guys I was interviewing with a small RIA here in Los Angeles told me, why don't you look into this guy Kitsis and his new network called XYPN and see maybe you can do something with them because I think you'll be okay on your own. So that's what I did last June. I looked you up.
So last June, so it's been about 1.5 years now that you've been in business.
Yeah. 1.5 years since I joined XYPN. I officially opened doors last January. So it's about a year.
So about a year in. So how much of your time is focused on the planning firm versus the teaching?
It's hard to say because it depends on the week. I teach 2 to 3 courses, but only once a week in class, and the other 2 are online, for example, in the spring. So I would say I do spend maybe 20, 30 hours a week on the teaching job and another 20, 30 hours a week right now on the financial planning. But I started with more. When I first opened the business a year ago, I was doing way more on the financial planning side.
Sure, getting kind of everything, all the foundation laid and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and also the summers. Like in the summer, I have 4 months off. I'm only doing financial planning.
So what's the long-term goal here? I mean, you have 2 careers, I mean, essentially that are full-time jobs each. I mean, but the cool thing is both of them are hyper flexible. So I guess what's your plan in 5 to 10 years? Where do you want this thing to end up for yourself?
I am definitely going to continue teaching because it's really what I like. I'm going to go for tenure probably in 1 to 3 years, depending when I decide to put my package in. Once I get tenure, I'll probably focus even more on the financial planning business, but I want to make it like a small boutique business. I don't need to have 1 million clients. And right now I changed my focus a little bit and I do focus more on the AUM than I did in the beginning a year ago. And I think I'm going to start doing much more of that next year. And once I have, probably between 20 and $30 million, I'm going to stop taking on more clients and just maintaining and doing it. One of the reasons I'm doing financial planning on the side by myself is because I took the capstone course. And I think it's really important to actually do what you teach. I mean, I felt really ripped off many times in my college career when the professor never had a job in their life. So I think it's really valuable to teach capstone when you actually have cases to talk about and clients to talk about.
Yeah, no, I totally respect that. It would be tough to teach a capstone class if you had never done financial planning, for one, and 2, weren't actively doing it.
Yeah, so pretty much I'll be a college professor doing financial planning and working with clients I like.
It's what I love about this career. There are not a lot of careers out there where folks are having this discussion around, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start a business. I'm going to get 20 to 30 million in assets under management. Maybe that's 20 to 50 clients, depending on the average, assets per client. And then I'm just going to stop taking on new clients. And I'm going to serve those clients. And the amount of time that you spend in your business will drop dramatically when you're not doing marketing and onboarding new clients, because that's really the time-consuming process. You kind of get into a rhythm. It's what I love about financial planning is we truly have one of the most flexible career paths because we can have these conversations, which I think a lot of industries don't. I'm curious about your shift towards AUM. So you've been doing, and you're doing, I noticed your fee structure is similar to kind of what we recommend is a upfront fee, a monthly fee for planning, and then doing assets under management. So when you say you're shifting your focus to AUM, is that shifting towards working with clients that have more assets under management, or is it, I guess, how is your focus changing?
Well, when I first started a year ago, I was said, like, let's see how the first year goes, and then I'll get a better idea by the end of it. And I started with a lot of individual financial plans. And I said, every client is different. I'm not going to push a set fee structure. They'll come to me, they'll tell me what they want, and we'll find a way to help them out. So it ended up being a little bit of random. Some one-time financial plans, some quick starts. I end up doing a lot of quick starts for some reason, like the $500 3-hour work, some hourly. And then I realized that every time I looked at these people and I did something with them, they always have assets somewhere, and they either want me to do something about them or not. And in the beginning, I wasn't planning at the AUM, but I ended up allocating all these assets all the time. So I said, well, maybe I should actually look into it. And I signed up with Betterment because I really do not want to be managing assets and build my own portfolios. I'm not smart enough to outsmart Betterment. I just said, let's try that. And if you do have money and you need somebody to manage your money, I will take it over. And I really don't care how much money you have. Okay, there is some limits. I'm not going to take $300 unless your mom really asks me and I'm your friend. I just want to help people. And if they want me to manage money, I will manage money for them. And it kind of naturally fell into that. And now most people who call me, I'll still only do financial planning first. I won't take money management without financial planning. But if I discover you have the assets, I will definitely manage the assets.
Okay, so it's not necessarily that you're shifting your focus. It's that you actually opened up a new business line in that you started out by not managing investments, and now you've kind of opened up investment management as a service model.
Yeah, and it actually naturally came to be like the thing that most people want. I still do one-off financial plans, like somebody got me a referral, like Chris got me a referral a few months ago, and a client just wanted financial planning and one-time plan, and he is not interested in that. So I do stuff like that, but in the future, I can see how I would be taking more assets under management and focusing a little bit more on that.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So first I want to talk about the marketing just a little bit. So how many clients are you currently working with a year in? Well, and I know you said you've had a lot of one-off plans, so you can kind of round the numbers and whatever makes sense.
Okay, so actually I did the Scott's compliance survey yesterday, so I can tell you exactly. In the last year, I worked with 23 people, so 23 separate people. And from those, around 12, I ended up taking some money on. So right now I have 12 people that I actively manage money, and I mean more money. I'm not counting like the $20,000 IRA.
Okay, so you're managing investments for a dozen of the 23 clients that you've worked with. So basically you have half of them are ongoing, half of them were one time.
Mm-hmm. And then the ones who are half time or one time, some of them stayed on as a monthly fee, and some of them just come back every 3-4 months and just do hourly if they need anything else.
Okay. So some of them are still ongoing, just not necessarily paying, or just the fee structure is a little different.
Yeah, not they don't have any assets to manage, or we decided it's not worth for me to roll their assets. They're better off where they are right now, but they still have questions and they still call every 2-3 months and we do something else.
Inga, that is phenomenal. I just want to point out, you're killing it. To work with 23 clients in 1 year is fantastic. But this isn't your full-time job. You've made it into, you're spending quite a few hours in it. It's not like you're doing this 5 hours a week, but that is phenomenal growth for your first year, especially considering you have another full-time job. So where are these clients coming from? How are they finding you?
They just fall into my lap. No, not really. But I do have a website, and some of them now are finding me through the website from the local. I get more people from Los Angeles. But when I first started, last January, I reached out to this lady who writes a blog for sociology professors, and she has a lot of subscribers. And I wrote this blog as a sociology professor, what are 10 things you have to think money-wise? Because let's be serious, those professors don't really think much about money the way we do. And I got probably 5 or 6 clients immediately from there.
Wow, from one blog post.
Yeah, but it was very targeted. I work with college professors. My website is written, so I work with college professors, and probably by now about 60-70% of my clients are professors, but the other 30 are not. 34% is something else. But at the time when I opened my doors, my first probably 10 clients were all college professors, and they all wanted a financial plan. College professors don't really have a lot of assets to manage, but they all want a financial plan.
Sure.
So I started from there. And when I first opened the doors, I was very conscious about costs. This is more of a hobby in the beginning for everybody, but I didn't really want this to be an expensive hobby. So my goal was to start it for $10,000. And in 2 to 3 months, I had to be self-sufficient where I was not putting any personal money into the business.
And were you able to hit that goal?
Yeah. I actually spent $7,500 last year to open the doors, and I spent another $2,500 in January to like finish my website and things like that. So it was exactly like $9,500 to start the business. And then I used my personal account to pay the fees and like XYPN membership in January and February. So March 1st, I switched exclusively to the business account. And at the end of this year, I'll take back my $10,000 that I put to invest.
That is incredible. Congratulations.
It's not like I'm making millions of dollars, but by the end of this year, I'll leave enough in the business for the next 6 months and take my initial investment. So it's a hobby that paid off for itself.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hobby that's going to create recurring revenue and income and that sort of thing going forward. So to come out of your first year, profitable is a tough word because generally when we say profitable, we mean you're pulling an adequate salary that you could make in the real world, not as an entrepreneur, which obviously you're not yet because you can make a boatload of money.
No. But I'm not spending money beyond what I put in. And now I can actually I'll start taking like a monthly.
So basically 12 months in, you've been able to kind of set yourself up to take out your initial investment as well as basically get some sort of salary. Again, maybe not
not salary. I don't call it salary, but some money out of it.
There you go. Not quite to salary level.
No, because like about 2 months ago, somebody called me and offered me a job as director of financial planning. I'm like, and it's like, yeah, it will take me a while to get the salary they were offering me.
But director of financial planning comes with, a full-time plus probably. That's a heck of a job. So
yeah,
not exactly apples to apples, but you're absolutely right that, most of us for many years could go make more money if we had a job. And I think the longer you own your business, the more money it takes to get you out of your business. Not only because we tend to make more money over time, but there just comes a point at which I just don't want to put on a suit again. I was actually at a restaurant yesterday for lunch and a guy walked up and he's in this olive colored suit. And I had this crazy flashback because I too graduated college and bought an olive colored suit because the guy at Men's Warehouse said it looked good on me and he lied. But
see, also in my case, like I really don't need to make an income from the business to be able to pay my bills. It would be very different if I had to. So I can be more flexible.
Right. And that's the side of, obviously we talk about this a lot on the show, but that's the side of taking care and getting your personal financial house in order. Not only do you have another job that's paying the bills, you're married and your spouse has an income, and that's huge in order to take the pressure off. And the truth is, if you didn't have any other income and it was just you and you were solely focused on your business, I wonder how much faster you would have grown, if at all. Like, I wonder if taking the pressure off of making income actually didn't hurt your growth at all. And if it just sort of allowed you to just sort of relax about it.
Oh, it did. Absolutely. I didn't really actively market anything last year. People just found me. So if I actually was more proactive about it, I probably grew much faster.
Might have been able to grow faster. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I don't hear a lot of folks with 23 clients in their first year, much less that then say, and I could have grown faster if I'd actually focused on it. So it's an amazing story, honestly. Like, I'm so impressed. So you said 70-ish% of your clients are college professors. Is that the focus that you're taking with your marketing and branding, is to say you work with college professors?
College professors and now also teachers. I got involved with the 4-3B Wise guys. I don't know if you know them. They have a podcast. They have a website. So now I have a profile there. So I do have teachers that call me. And now I kind of became this, I don't want to say expert, but I know a lot about the CalPERS and the CalSTRS systems, which is the pension systems in California for professors and for teachers. They still have a DB pension system. So I started getting referrals specifically to work with that. A lot of the work I've been doing the last 2 or 3 months around those pension systems.
Yeah, extremely complex stuff. I have looked at it before with prospective clients that called me. And when I dug into it, I realized I had no business taking on a client in California that was tied up in some of those systems. So,
and actually, I'm in one of those systems. So I spent 50 hours when I got my job trying to figure out what's going on. So I'm like, oh yeah, I can do this for you.
You mentioned 403B Wise. So 403B Wise is a couple gentlemen that have basically an educational platform for teachers. They're consumer facing. So they're out there just educating teachers on on their 403B. They just had a great article come out in the New York Times. So if you're interested in working with teachers or professors, go to 403B Wise. They've started an advisor connect platform, basically like what you're talking about, to be able to connect consumers with an advisor that's an expert in this area. So great recommendation there. So I guess kind of what's next? Like things are going the direction that, up, which is good. So do you have any big plans for 2017? Obviously, you've shifted the focus a little bit with bringing on investment management. Do you have any other plans, I guess, kind of going forward on things you want to do next year to continue to grow the firm?
Yeah, I'm going to start doing much more marketing in 2017. I want to really focus and do more marketing and bring in more clients because I want to take another year and get to all the clients I want. And past this, I want to focus on only surfacing those instead of bringing more people in. I'm still not sure if I'm going to continue doing a lot of this one-off plans. I actually enjoy it, so I probably will because it's fun. And once you're done, you forget about it and you move on to the next one with a different problem. But I really don't want to be too inflexible because I don't know what's going to happen. Last year, I changed my mind 20 times. So I'm just going to take it every day and see, okay, what are we doing for the next 2 or 3 months? And by the end of the second year, I hope to be much more focused on what my long-term plan is.
So this is the end of 2018. You want to be done. The current vision is be done taking on new clients and just sort of, so within the next 24 months, or are you saying the next 12 months?
No, in the next 24 months. So by the end of the 3 years, I gave myself 3 years until the business is all set up. After 3 years, either you give up because you can't make it happen, or you say, I have enough clients and this is my business. That's my plan. But that's as far as I thought. I'm a person who plans a lot, and I have a lot of bullet points I always put in place, but I found that things change all the time. So it's just better to take it one at a time and see what happens.
All right. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's 3 years. I mean, I'll admit, if we were sitting down and you said, hey, I'm starting a business today and within 3 years, this is where I want to be, I'd say, you know what, it's pretty aggressive. I think it's doable, but aggressive. You're on track for that. So I'm not going to tell you it's too aggressive because I don't see any reason why you can't achieve that.
Yeah, I don't know if it will happen, but if I'm close to it, I'll like, okay, 3 years was good, let's do 2 more. But if I'm not close to it, I'll reevaluate what kind of work I want to join with them.
Sure. So time management is such an issue. And I experience this myself just in doing the work that I do. And I know that we've talked on the show before with Kitsis because he's obviously a time management guru because everyone thinks he has, 40 hours in a day. And you sound like you have 40 hours in a day. You just had a baby. And so in addition to all the other stuff that you're doing, so what's your methodology for managing your time and balancing all the various things that you have in the air right now?
I am extremely organized to the point where I drive my husband crazy. Everything has a plan, a backup plan, 3 more plans, and we cannot deviate from the plan. So I pretty much don't waste time, or I try not to waste time. And I plan the whole week on Sunday. I have a piece of paper with what's going to happen by hour. I do allow some flexibility here and there, but it's constant monitoring of the time. You cannot just get on Facebook and spend the next 3 hours looking around.
Right. So it really does come down to just really being structured with your time and intentional.
Yeah. And if I need to take a day off, I will. But it will be a planned day off. It's not going to be, well, let's wake up at 10 o'clock and watch TV and drink coffee and start your day at 12.
Okay. I mean, and that sounds like a obvious thing. But when you control your own time, it's like being back in college when suddenly you can wake up whenever you want and go to bed whenever you want. There is actually something very powerful about not having artificial constraints on your time. So when you have a job, you have this like from 9 to 5, you have to be at work, and it almost gives your week structure and it gives you a place that you have to live because you have a job. So now you have a city that you have to live in and hours you have to be certain places and vacation days. When you're an entrepreneur, you don't have any of that constraint. So many of us have to build in some of those constraints and be sure we're getting up early and going to bed at a reasonable time and making good use of our time, because it's so easy to not, because you don't have any constraints on what you do. And it's really all comes down to how do you manage your time.
Well, I have a very well-developed sense of guilt. So sitting around is going to make me feel so guilty for going to happen.
So that's the strategy, is if you're sitting around doing nothing, feel guilty.
Yeah. And I realized like I could be doing much better things with my life than just if I wasn't doing this. So let's get things done and go to more pleasant things in life.
It's a great way of looking at it. So do you see this as kind of like you need to keep your head down and just grind through the next couple of years, and that will sort of free you to then really be able to do the things that you love doing? Or do you think you'll...
Oh, no, I do them now. No, I definitely do them now. I do hope, like for the last few years, I had this idea that every summer I'm going to go for a month to 2 months and live somewhere abroad in a different country. And that hasn't happened yet because first I was writing papers for tenure and then I was opening a business last year. And now I have a brand new baby, but I hope next summer in 2018, I am going to go and spend my first summer abroad.
I love it.
So obviously I'll continue working from somewhere and doing things, but I do things right now. I travel a lot. It's not like I'm only working.
Sure.
Even though some days it feels like that.
And don't let anybody tell you can't travel with a baby. My son has more frequent flyer miles than most adults. I think I'll give him until 5 months before I start dragging him around. So give me another 2-3 months. I think our first solo flight together was actually to Hawaii. My parents did the last leg of it. We did a couple legs by ourselves, and they do fine. They love it. Now he looks forward to flying. So once you start traveling with them, you may find they actually enjoy traveling. So yeah, this is just, it's kind of astounding. I feel like you're an example of, well, I guess twofold. I don't want this to sound insulting, but like, we always talk about the top 10% is the iceberg concept. Like you can always see the top 10% of the iceberg. And when we look at entrepreneurs and firms like yours, we see success. We see the top 10%. We don't see the 90% that went into it. And I think we've at least gotten a glimpse of the fact that 90% for you is very real. You know, if you just tell someone like, yeah, I got 23 clients in my first year and moving on, you know, people are like, oh my gosh, it sounds so easy. And there was nothing easy about this path. I mean, you have put in the time and the energy and the hours and given up a lot and sacrificed a lot in order to get to this point. And you're still sacrificing. You're working 2 full-time jobs with a baby and a husband. So like, I don't know where you find the time, but I commend you for being able to get this done. And I'm just so excited for you.
Well, once we commit, we don't quit. That's it. So
I love it.
I really want to see this because, and I mean, I like doing what I do. Like, I don't see this financial planning as a job. I meet with clients and I get excited and I want to work on them. And I really probably have 1 or 2 clients now that I'm trying to figure out how to tell that I don't really want them to be my clients anymore. But most of my clients, I'm looking forward to talking to them.
I think that's one of the understated benefits of owning a firm. We talk a lot about like, oh, I get to own my schedule and work when I want, do what I want, make the decisions. Working with clients that you get to pick instead of when you work at a big firm and you're handed clients that a relationship manager went out there and got. It is a powerful thing to be able to work with clients that you love because that makes you excited to get up in the morning because they're a good fit for you. And like you said, if it is not a good fit, then over time you kind of figure that out and part ways. You can't do that in a big firm. And I think it's an understated benefit of owning your own firm and being able to build those relationships is that we do get to work with people that we love.
Yeah. And actually, when I first started, working is a little unrelated, but I remember my first client and I realized the skill sets I have and don't have. And what I was lacking was more the human side of it. Now my next big idea is that in the fall, I'll start taking classes and get myself a master's degree in counseling because I think that would really help with what I do right now.
Just what you need, 3 undergraduate degrees, a master's, an MBA, and a PhD. That it sounds like you're underachieving there, Inga.
Well, you know, my first client cried with me on the phone for 2 hours. It made me very uncomfortable. And I didn't really know how to handle this situation because I'm like, listen, this is how you solve your problem. Here are the 5 bullet points, go and solve your problem. It wasn't really about the money. It was about relationships and the relationship she had with money. So I'm like, maybe if somebody told me better how to deal with these issues, it will help to be a financial planner.
It's a great point.
A PhD in finance is definitely not going to give me any psychology classes.
No, does not teach you how to talk to clients. I mean, you can do masters in counseling, and obviously there's like the Life Planning Institute with George Kinder, or Money Quotient, or Kansas State now has their certificate in financial therapy, which I hear is fantastic. So there are definitely some opportunities. But yeah, the first time a client just like bursts out crying in your office, extremely uncomfortable for those of us that are not that emotional by nature and just like I just can't imagine what it would take for me to burst out crying in a planner's office and watch. I'll do it one day. But yeah, it's uncomfortable. And learning how to deal with that, navigate it, I think counselors have the gift and the skill, probably more skill than gift, to ask the next question, to be able to dig, find out the core. So I think counseling is extremely valuable. Maybe we'll have to have you back on the show once if you go through that process to decide.
Call me back in 3 years and I'll tell you. But
if it was worth the time.
I mean, I think it will be worth the time because especially growing in Eastern Europe and having I'm a very direct person. So sometimes I find myself like I tell my clients what to do. And I think it's so simple. Like, here's what you do. That's it. Problem solved. And I feel like sometimes maybe I'm offending them because it's not soft enough. Like, for example, if you told me like, look, I have a deficit and I'm spending this much money, my response would be like, well, stop spending money and we solve your problem.
Right. The practical. My first boss, Rick Kaler, he jokes, he has said this on stage, that he spent $80,000 discovering he had an emotional side of his brain. I get the right brain, left brain confused, but he's pure analytical, and his $80,000 is he spent $80,000 in therapy bills over 20 years finding that side of him, and just because it wasn't natural for him. But now he's one of the leading experts in financial therapy and the blending of psychology and money. So and I will say this, and he would not be offended, if Rick can do it, if Rick can go from the CFA brain to being a truly in touch emotionally person, anyone can. So it gives us all hope.
Yeah, I actually know this about him because I saw him talking a few years ago for the first time, and I thought he's the most emotional guy out there. So I didn't know about the other side of him.
He is a CFA quantitative type. I mean, that man, if he could just analyze data all day, he would. All the emotional side is self-taught or learned over his career. So it's a pretty amazing, maybe we'll have him on the show. It's a pretty amazing story of how that came to be, but extremely valuable. I wish there was a shortcut to that maybe, a master's in counseling wasn't required, but honestly, that's the skill set that it takes. So it's awesome. If you have the time and energy to be able to focus on that, I think it will make you a better planner.
I think so too. So we'll try and see how it goes.
Well, Inga, as we're sort of wrapping up, ask you kind of the last question I always ask, which is, if you could go back to the younger Inga, maybe the one that was getting into financial planning or getting into your PhD in finance program, kind of wherever it makes sense for you, if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice, one thing you wish you had known then that you know now, what do you think that piece of advice would be?
Oh, probably just relax. Everything is going to be okay. Like, what is the worst case that can happen? It's okay not to have a 4.0 GPA. It's okay not to have 7 jobs and accomplish a lot. So I would just say relax and don't worry. It's going to be fine. Life will work out.
I think that is advice we can all benefit from. Well, thank you, Inga, so much for taking the time to be on the show today, and best of luck with the little one. I'm so excited for you.
Thanks, Alan.
Inga is a very special person. She's an example of setting goals and staying very focused on them to build towards them, but also be willing to pivot and adjust as needed. She has had a fantastic first year in business, and I'm excited to see how things go for her over the next 1 to 2 years as she determines the path that she's going to take in the future. And most of all, I hope she gets to take that 1 to 2 months abroad next year that she's hoping to do in the summer. This month's episodes are brought to you by Financial Planners Assistance, providing compliance services to financial planners and other investment advisors since 1982. Financial Planners Assistance is a boutique consulting firm that provides the personalized compliance services firms are looking for. I actually personally worked with Financial Planners Assistance when launching my firm back in 2012, and I cannot say enough great things about their team and Jim Cullen, the owner. The awesome service and support I received was unparalleled, including going through an audit by the state of Wisconsin. Check them out at financialplannersassistance.com. Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes with myself and Kitsis, and to finally find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.